Rain-slicked backstreets of Little Seoul in Vancouver hid secrets deadlier than winter fog. Zuri Voss fled into the storm, pulse thundering, betrayed by the man whose whispered promises still haunted her dreams. But as the Bulcott Enclave's hunters closed in, Tae-Woo Hwan's frantic text lit her screen. "Flee! They've marked you!" Desire wasn't meant to ignite in flames. Or had it always been destined to burn? Rain lashed the backstreets of Little Seoul like accusations from the sky. Vancouver's winter fog swallowing the neon glow of hidden karaoke dens and shadowed lounges. Zuri Voss stumbled through the storm, boots splashing in puddles that reflected fractured lights, her heart fracturing deeper with every step. How had it come to this? The man she'd let breach her walls, whose body had mapped hers in stolen nights of fire and surrender, now the architect of her ruin. She'd overheard it all, pressed against the cracked door of his office in the Gurium Vale's back room. Tae-Woo Hwan's voice, that velvet timbre that once murmured her name like a prayer, now cold steel. Handle the owner at Midnight Echo. He refuses protection, make it permanent. The lounge owner, Elias, a casual acquaintance who'd poured her coffee during slow shifts, targeted for defying the Nokdu Shadow's grip on the nightlife. And her? She'd been no more than a pawn, kept close to watch the bar, ensnared in his web of territorial enforcements and whispered threats. Her phone vibrated, his number. "Flee, they've marked you." The Bulcott Enclave, his rivals, hungry for blood in the power vacuum he'd tried to carve. Zuri's breath hitched, a sob choking her as memories crashed like waves. 3 months ago, his fingers had traced her spine in the dim after-hours glow, slow and deliberate, igniting sparks that raced through her veins. "You're my anchor," he'd whispered against her neck, lips brushing skin in a way that made her arch, crave more. Their bodies had entwined then, a symphony of restrained hunger, his hands gripping her hips, pulling her flush, breaths mingling in heated urgency. Every touch had been a promise, vulnerability cracking his controlled facade, her guarded heart yielding to the intensity of his gaze, dark eyes devouring her as if she were salvation. Now, that salvation tasted like poison. Betrayal burned hotter than any caress, twisting the lingering ache of desire into agony. She wiped rain or tears from her face, pulse thundering as footsteps echoed behind her. 2 shadows emerged from the fog, broad-shouldered enforcers with eyes like voids. "Zuri Voss," one snarled, voice cutting through the downpour. "Hwan's weakness. Come quiet, or we make it hurt." She bolted, legs pumping, mind reeling. Why warn her? Why still care? The thought fueled her flight, a twisted thread of hope amid the shatter. His touch haunted her, those nights where restraint snapped, bodies pressing in desperate rhythm, her nails raking his back as he claimed her with a fierceness that blurred love and possession. "I can't lose you," he'd groaned once, forehead to hers, sweat slicked and spent, vulnerability raw in his voice. Headlights pierced the night. A car screeched to a halt ahead, blocking her path. Doors flew open, more Bulcott men. Trapped. Her phone buzzed again. "Hold on, I'm coming." Tae-Woo, savior or executioner? The storm raged on, mirroring the war in her soul, love's embers refusing to die, even as betrayal threatened to consume them both. The Gurium Vale's lights dimmed to a soft amber haze, the last patrons trickling out into Vancouver's crisp autumn light. Zuri Voss wiped down the polished oak bar with mechanical precision, her mind drifting to the stack of law textbooks gathering dust in her cramped apartment. Dropping out after her father's death had felt like survival then. Bills didn't wait for grief. Now, it haunted her like a half-healed scar. He was there again, at the corner booth, nursing a glass of aged rye. Tae-Woo Hwan. He'd been a regular for weeks, always alone, always watching the room with that unnerving calm. Tonight, as the clock ticked past closing, he didn't leave. "Last call was an hour ago," Zuri said, approaching with a faint edge to her voice. She set a fresh napkin down, close enough to catch his scent, cedar smoke and quiet authority. His dark eyes lifted, locking onto hers with an intensity that sent a subtle shiver down her spine. "Not here for the drink." A faint smile tugged at his lips, rare and disarming. "For the company." She crossed her arms, leaning against the booth's edge. Flattery from a man who owns half the shadows in Little Seoul. Save it for someone impressed. He chuckled low, the sound vibrating through the empty space like a secret shared. "You see more than most. That's why I stay." He gestured to the stool opposite him. "Sit, just for a minute." Hesitation flickered in her chest, but curiosity, and something deeper, a pull she couldn't name, won. She slid in, their knees brushing under the table. Electric. Accidental? His gaze didn't waver, tracing the curve of her jaw as if memorizing it. "Why law school?" he asked suddenly, voice soft but probing. "You mentioned it once, in passing. Then nothing." Zuri's breath caught. She'd let that slip weeks ago during a rushed order. Observant, or nosy, she met his stare unflinching. "I dropped out. Life got complicated. Family stuff." His fingers drummed the glass rim, slow and deliberate. "I know complicated." A pause, heavy with unspoken weight. "My world, it's all expectations. No room for detours." The air thickened, charged. He leaned forward slightly, elbow on the table, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Her pulse quickened, traitorous. "You control everything here," she murmured, voice dropping. "The lounges, the late-night deals. Why pretend otherwise?" His hand shifted, almost reaching for hers, hesitated, then settled inches away. Fingertips grazed the wood between them, a whisper of what could be. "Because with you, I don't want to control. I want to unravel." Heat bloomed in her core, unbidden. Their eyes held, a silent storm brewing, his pupils dilating, her lips parting on a breath she didn't release. The tension coiled, intimate, like the prelude to a kiss that promised to shatter walls. Restraint hung by a thread, one move and it would snap. But she stood first, breaking the spell. "Good night, Tae-Woo." He watched her go, expression conflicted. "Until next time, Zuri." The door locked behind her, but the echo of that almost touch lingered, a spark in the dark. Fog clung to the abandoned Samju Pier like a shroud, Vancouver's harbour winds whipping salt and secrets through the air. Zuri Voss gripped the steering wheel of her beat-up sedan, heart a war drum as she pulled into the shadowed lot. Tae-Woo's text burned in her mind. "Warehouse on the pier, come alone, truth waits." After the betrayal, after fleeing his enforcer's grip, why come? Because the ghost of his touch still seared her. Nights where his lips had claimed hers with a hunger that unravelled her defences. Bodies entwined in a dance of fire and fragility. his hands mapping her curves as if she were his only truth. She stepped out, boots echoing on cracked concrete. The warehouse loomed, doors creaking open to reveal dim industrial guts, rusting beams, forgotten crates. Tae-Woo stood in the center, silhouette tense, face half lit by a swinging bulb. Bruised jaw, eyes shadowed with something deeper than fatigue. "You came," he said, voice rough, stepping forward. His hand reached out, instinctive, possessive, brushing her arm. Electricity surged unbidden. She jerked back, but the contact lingered, a phantom warmth that recalled stolen moments. His mouth trailing fire down her throat, her fingers threading through his hair as she pulled him closer, breath sinking in rhythmic urgency. Every press of skin a vow unspoken. "Talk," Zuri demanded, voice steel despite the tremor. "Why the hit on Elias? Why drag me into your Nokdu shadow wars?" His expression fractured, pain, regret. "I didn't drag you. You became everything." He closed the distance, fingers grazing her cheek now, tender yet desperate. "I'm sabotaging it all, Zuri. Undermining deals, warning targets like Elias before strikes. To break free. But my uncle, dying, demanding I claim it all. The Balkot enclave smells weakness." Her breath hitched, anger warring with the pull of his nearness. His thumb traced her lower lip, slow, igniting sparks that pooled low in her belly. "You lied," she whispered, but didn't pull away. The air hummed, charged, his gaze devouring her, restraint cracking as he leaned in, forehead to hers. "I could lose you forever." Then shadows stirred, doors burst open, Balkot enforcers, 5 of them, guns drawn, faces twisted in predatory grins. "Traitor and his toy," one sneered. End of the line. Chaos erupted. Tae-Woo shoved Zuri behind a crate, drawing his own weapon. Gunfire cracked like thunder, bullets pinging metal. She grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor, swinging it at a flanking attacker. Crunch of impact, the man crumpling. Tae-Woo fired precise shots, dropping 2. But one lunged at her, knife gleaming. Tae-Woo tackled him, a brutal grapple ending in a silenced shot. Blood sprayed. He killed for her. "Run!" he roared, pulling her toward the exit. More shots whizzed past. They burst into the night, diving into his waiting SUV. Tires screamed as they peeled away, fog swallowing the pier. In the passenger seat, Zuri's chest heaved. "You killed him. For me." He glanced over, eyes fierce, hand finding hers on the gear shift, interlacing fingers with a grip that spoke volumes. "I'd burn it all for you." Rage boiled over. She slapped him, hard, palm stinging. He didn't flinch, just held her gaze, accepting the storm. The car hurtled through the night, tension thick as unspoken desire, their bond fractured yet unbreakable. The rooftop of the old Granville warehouse offered Little Seoul a secret vantage. Vancouver's skyline glittering below like scattered diamonds, the harbour wind carrying salt and distant ferry horns. Zuri Voss leaned against the low concrete ledge, arms wrapped around herself against the October chill. Tae-Woo had texted her an hour earlier. "Meet me where the city forgets itself." No explanation, just coordinates. She'd come anyway. Against every instinct screaming caution, against the growing whispers she'd heard about the Nokdu shadow's tightening grip on the nightlife corridors she walked every night. He arrived silently, footsteps soft on gravel. Black coat open, shirt sleeves rolled to reveal the faint lines of old scars. No words at first, just presence. He stopped beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed, the heat of him cutting through the cold like a promise. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally, voice low, rough around the edges. "Neither should you." Zuri turned to face him, chin lifted. "But here we are." His gaze dropped to her lips, then rose again, dark, hungry, conflicted. Weeks of late-night conversations at the Guruam Vale had built this, charged silences, accidental touches that lingered too long, glances that stripped away pretense. Tonight felt like the breaking point. He stepped closer. One hand rose slowly, knuckles grazing her cheek, then cupping it with a tenderness that belied the violence she knew lived in him. Her breath caught. His thumb traced the line of her jaw, deliberate, reverent. "Every time you look at me like that," he murmured, "I forget how dangerous this is." "Then stop looking away." Her voice came out softer than intended, trembling on the edge of surrender. He didn't. Instead, he closed the distance in one measured breath. Their lips met, soft at first, tasting the storm between them. Then restraint shattered. His mouth claimed hers with a fierce, aching hunger that made her knees weaken. She gripped his coat, pulling him closer, fingers curling into fabric as if anchoring herself against the tide. He backed her gently against the ledge, one arm banding around her waist, the other sliding into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. Tongues met in slow, deliberate strokes, heat building, breaths ragged and shared. His body pressed flush to hers, hard lines and restrained power igniting every nerve. She arched into him instinctively, a soft sound escaping her throat as his hand slipped lower, fingers splaying across the small of her back, pulling her impossibly tighter. The world narrowed to sensation. The scrape of his stubble against her skin, the way his heartbeat thundered against her chest, the slow grind of hips that sent sparks racing through her core. Desire coiled tight, urgent, begging for release. Her hands roamed, under his coat, over the planes of his chest, feeling muscle tense and shudder beneath her touch. He broke the kiss first, forehead pressed to hers, breathing hard. "Zuri," her name like a plea. I won't drag you into my shadows." Anger flared sharp and hot. She shoved at his chest, not hard enough to push him away, just enough to make space. "Don't you dare decide what I can handle." Her voice cracked. "You kiss me like I'm yours, then push me away like I'm fragile. I'm not." His eyes darkened, regret warring with raw need. "You deserve light, not this." She stepped back fully, wind whipping her hair. "Then stop pretending you can give it to me." She turned toward the stairs, pulse still racing, lips swollen and tingling from his claim. "Don't come back to the Vale unless you mean it." He didn't follow, but as she descended, the echo of that almost crossed line burned in her veins, half promise, half warning. And deep down, she knew she was already falling. The Yunwol hideout perched on Vancouver's outskirts, a nondescript cabin shrouded in evergreen fog, its windows barred against prying eyes. Tae-Woo slammed the door behind them, the SUV's engine still ticking in the driveway like a fading heartbeat. Zuri Voss staggered inside, adrenaline ebbing into a bone-deep ache, her clothes torn from the warehouse brawl. Blood, his, theirs, stained her hands, a grim reminder of the kill she'd witnessed. He flipped on a single lamp, casting long shadows that danced like unspoken accusations. "Sit," he ordered, voice gravel rough, guiding her to the worn leather couch. She collapsed, watching as he rummaged for a first aid kit, his movements precise despite the gash across his ribs. "You killed for me," Zuri whispered, the words hanging heavy. "Why? After everything, the lies, the shadows." Tae-Woo knelt before her, dark eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that stripped away pretense. "Because losing you would end me." His fingers, calloused yet gentle, tilted her chin up. The air crackled, charged with the storm of their fractured bond. He leaned in, breath fanning her lips, close enough that she could taste the salt of his skin mixed with rain. She should push him away. Instead, her hand rose, tracing the line of his jaw, feeling the stubble rasp under her palm. "Tell me everything," she demanded, voice trembling. "No more half-truths." He nodded, but words faltered as his thumb brushed her lower lip, parting it slightly. Desire ignited, raw, unfiltered. "The Gurren Veil, it's under Nokdu protection. Your shifts, your safety, tied to my family's hold on the nightlife. Extortion keeps the rivals at bay, but I've been unraveling it. Warning owners, stalling enforcements. To escape before my uncle's death forces my hand." Complicity hit her like a wave. The bar's quiet nights, the unexplained favors. She'd been part of it, unwittingly. Rage surged. "You used me." "No." His grip tightened on her waist, pulling her to the edge of the couch. "You became my reason to fight." His mouth crashed onto hers then, fierce, desperate, a reckoning in itself. Lips moved with urgent hunger, tongues clashing in a battle for dominance that mirrored their storm. She fisted his shirt, yanking him closer, her legs parting instinctively as he settled between them. The kiss deepened, devouring. His hands roamed, sliding under her torn jacket, palms hot against bare skin, tracing the curve of her ribs, thumbs grazing the swell of her breasts. A gasp escaped her as he nipped her neck, teeth grazing pulse points, sending shocks of pleasure straight to her core. She arched into him, nails digging into his shoulders, pulling at fabric until his shirt gaped open, her fingers exploring the hard planes of his chest, the fresh wound that made him hiss, but not stop. Bodies pressed, heat building in frantic rhythm. His hips ground against hers, eliciting a low moan from deep in her throat. "Ah, Tae-Woo." His name a plea, a curse. Restraint frayed, clothes tugged aside just enough for skin to meet skin, intimate friction sparking waves of need. Every touch was electric, his mouth on her collarbone, her hands in his hair, guiding, demanding. But the argument lingered, fueling the fire. She broke the kiss, shoving him back slightly. "This doesn't fix it." His eyes blazed, love, regret, possession. "No, but it's us." Foreheads touched, breaths mingling in ragged sync. "Fight me, Zuri, but don't leave." The room spun with unresolved tension, their bond a live wire, desire and fury entwined, unbreakable even in the wreckage. The Gurren Veil's back alley felt smaller tonight, the fog pressing in like judgment, Vancouver's harbour wind carrying the faint metallic tang of rain and regret. Zuri Voss stood rigid under the stuttering security bulb, arms wrapped tight around herself, not against the cold, but against the ache tearing open inside her chest. She'd followed the trail of whispers, Elias's fear, the bruised knuckles on a bouncer, Tae-Woo's clipped phone call promising consequences. The man who'd kissed her like she was oxygen now ordered violence as casually as he ordered whiskey. And still, God help her, she couldn't walk away clean. He appeared at the mouth of the alley like a shadow given form, coat open, shoulders carrying the weight of too many nights like this. His eyes found hers immediately, and something in them cracked. Raw, unguarded pain that mirrored her own. Zuri. Her name left him like a confession. He took one step, then stopped, as if afraid movement would shatter whatever fragile thing remained between them. I know what you are, she said, voice breaking on the last word. The hit on Elias, the protection that breaks people. You let me fall for you while your hand stayed bloody. He flinched, visibly, like she'd struck him. I never wanted you to see this part. His voice was hoarse, stripped of its usual control. Every time I looked at you, I pretended I could be someone else, someone clean, someone worthy. Tears burned her eyes, hot and furious. Then why didn't you stop? Why keep coming back to me, touching me like I mattered, when you knew this would destroy us? Because you were the only thing that felt real. He closed the distance in 2 strides, stopping just short of touching her. His hands hovered near her arms, trembling. In a life built on control and fear, you were the one place I could breathe. The one person who looked at me and saw more than the air, more than the weapon. I hate what I am, Zuri, but I love what I feel when I'm with you. And that terrifies me more than any rival ever could. The admission hung between them, naked, bleeding. Zuri's throat closed. She stepped into him, pressing her forehead to his chest, feeling the frantic thud of his heart. I hate you for making me love you anyway, she whispered. For making me want to save you when I should run. His arms came around her then, slow, careful, as if she might vanish. One hand cradled the back of her head, the other splayed across her back, holding her like she was the last good thing in his world. Then run, he murmured into her hair, voice thick with unshed tears. I'll let you go. I'll disappear from your life. Just tell me you don't feel this too. Tell me I'm alone in it. She lifted her head, searching his face, eyes glassy, jaw clenched against breaking completely. I'm not running, she said, the words tearing out of her. I'm fighting, for me, for whatever broken thing we could be. Blackmail followed like a desperate lifeline. Help me get back into law school, anonymous, clean, or I expose everything I've seen. He exhaled shakily, nodding once. Done, but you stop digging. No more questions, or we both go down. The deal sealed, silence swallowed them. Then his mouth found hers, not in anger this time, but in raw, aching surrender. The kiss was slow, devastating, lips trembling against lips, tasting salt from tears neither had noticed falling. Tongues met in gentle exploration, not conquest. Hands shook as they slid under clothing, seeking skin, seeking proof that this was real. He lifted her against the wall, her legs wrapping around him instinctively. Bodies aligned in quiet desperation, his hips pressing forward in slow, reverent rhythm, her fingers threading through his hair, holding him like he might disappear. Every touch carried vulnerability. The way he whispered her name against her throat like a prayer. The way she clung to him as if letting go would unravel her completely. Clothes shifted just enough for intimacy. Skin on skin, heat building in hushed waves, breaths hitching with shared sobs and soft moans. No rush, No possession, only the fragile, terrifying act of choosing each other in the wreckage. When it ended, they stayed tangled, foreheads pressed, tears mingling on cheeks. "We're bound now," he whispered, voice wrecked. "Not by threats, by this." Zuri nodded against his shoulder, heart laid bare. "By this." The fog closed around them. Two people, exposed and trembling, crossing the line not in fire, but in quiet, irreversible surrender. The private room at the back of the Jade Lantern smelled of incense and dying orchids, Vancouver's hidden Korean elder council chamber, where power changed hands in whispers rather than gunshots. Zuri Voss sat across from Elder Hyun-sik, the Nokdu Shadow's dying patriarch, his oxygen mask hissing softly between laboured breaths. Tubes snaked from his arm. His skin was parchment thin, but his eyes still held the cold authority that had built an empire on fear and loyalty. She had come alone. No weapon, no backup, just the truth she carried like a blade. "You shouldn't be here, girl," Hyun-sik rasped, voice thin but sharp. "My nephew keeps you hidden for a reason." "I'm not hidden anymore." Zuri leaned forward, hand steady on the lacquered table despite the tremor in her chest. "Tae-Woo is sabotaging everything you've built. Not out of betrayal, out of exhaustion. He wants out, but you won't let him go." The elder's gaze narrowed. "He is heir. The shadow doesn't release its own." "Then release him." Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. "Let him take full control, temporarily. Publicly name him successor tonight. In exchange, when the transition is secure, you announce his clean exit. No pursuit, no mark on him. He walks. The family debt of blood ends with you." Hyun-sik laughed, a wet, rattling sound that turned into a cough. "You think you can bargain with legacy?" "I think you're dying," she said quietly, the words landing like stones. "And I think you love him enough to want him free, even if it cost you the empire." Silence stretched, broken only by the hiss of oxygen. The elder studied her, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, perhaps even respect. Then pain twisted his features. "You love him," he murmured, not a question. Zuri's throat closed, tears welled unbidden. "More than I knew I could. Enough to risk everything so he doesn't have to carry your ghost anymore." Hyun-sik closed his eyes. His hand trembled as he reached for the bell on the table. "Call the council. Tonight. I will name Tae-Woo successor." Relief crashed through her, then terror. Because this gambit had just painted a target on both their backs. The elder's chest heaved once, twice, then stilled. The monitor flatlined in a long, unbroken tone. Chaos erupted, doors flew open, rival voices shouted from the hallway, Boycott Enclave enforcers already moving on the rumor of weakness. Gunfire cracked in the outer rooms. Zuri froze for a heartbeat, then bolted toward the service exit. She made it halfway down the corridor before arms wrapped around her from behind, rough, bruising. A Boycott lieutenant pressed a gun to her temple. Hwan's woman, perfect leverage. She struggled, elbow connecting with ribs, but the grip tightened. "He'll come for you," the man sneered. "And when he does..." A shot rang out, clean, precise. The lieutenant dropped. Tae-Woo stood at the end of the hall, pistol smoking, eyes wild with something primal. "Zuri!" He reached her in seconds, pulling her against him so hard the air left her lungs. His hands shook as they framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "You idiot," he whispered, voice wrecked. "You could have died. So could you." She gripped his jacket, fingers curling into fabric over his racing heart. "I had to try. For us." His forehead crashed to hers, breaths ragged. "My uncle. Dead," she swallowed. "He was going to name you. But the bullcop moved first. They're coming for everything now. The council, the territory, everything." Tae-Woo's eyes closed, pain etching deep lines around them. "Then we have 48 hours, before they force the choice. Take it all, or lose you." He kissed her then, fierce, desperate, tasting of salt and fear. Lips bruised against lips, hands clutching like drowning people, every press of body screaming what words couldn't. "I can't lose this. I won't." When they broke apart, his voice was barely audible. "We end it together." The hallway lights flickered as more gunfire echoed closer. Their time was running out. The borrowed safe house sat on the cliff's edge south of Vancouver, dawn bleeding crimson across the Pacific like an open wound finally beginning to heal. Inside, the air was thick with unsaid goodbyes and fragile hope. Tae-Woo Hwan stood frozen at the kitchen counter, burner phone shattered on the floor, its last message from a scattered Nokdu lieutenant confirming the collapse. Police raids sweeping the nightlife corridors, bullcot enforcers fleeing or arrested, the shadow dissolving into smoke. No throne claimed, no heir crowned, just silence where power once roared. Zuri Voss watched from the doorway, barefoot on cold wood, arms wrapped so tightly around herself her knuckles blanched white. 3 months of running, fighting, loving in the wreckage had carved hollows under her eyes. Yet they still burned with the same fierce light that had first undone him. "You did it," she whispered, voice cracking on the edges. "It's gone." He turned slowly, face ravaged, tears already tracking silent paths down his cheeks. "I burned it all," he said, the words scraping raw. "Every favor, every threat, every life I took or spared. I leaked names, dates, enough to bury the remnants without burying us. But God, Zuri, I thought freedom would feel like relief. It feels like grieving." She crossed the room in 3 steps, hands rising to cup his face, thumbs sweeping away tears that kept falling. "Then grieve," she said, her own voice fracturing. "Grieve the boy who was forced into shadows. Grieve the man who carried too much for too long. But don't grieve us, because we're still here." His hands came up to cover hers, gripping so hard it hurt, in the best, most grounding way. "I was terrified," he confessed, forehead dropping to hers, breaths shuddering. "Terrified that without the Empire I'd be nothing, that you'd see the hollow man underneath and walk away. I hated myself for every moment I let danger touch you. For every time I held you after blood on my hands and pretended it didn't stain us both." Zuri's tears spilled then, hot, unstoppable. "I saw the hollow places," she said, voice thick with emotion. "And I loved you harder for them, because you fought to fill them with something real, with me." She pressed closer, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces finally slotting home. "I was scared too. Scared I'd lose you to duty. Scared my love would trap you instead of free you. But look at us, still standing, still choosing. The kiss that followed wasn't gentle. It was a collision of every suppressed sob, every withheld scream, every whispered "I love you" they'd been too afraid to say aloud. Lips met in desperate, trembling hunger, tears salting the taste, tongue seeking forgiveness and absolution in equal measure. His arms banded around her waist, lifting her onto the counter. Her legs wrapped around him instinctively, pulling him flush. Hands shook as they roamed, his sliding under her shirt to press palm flat against her racing heart, hers threading through his hair, holding him like he might vanish if she let go. They moved to the bedroom in a tangle of limbs and quiet gasps. Clothes fell away slowly, reverently, each scar kissed, each bruise traced with lips that trembled. When he entered her, it was slow, deliberate, eyes locked so neither could hide. Every thrust carried the weight of confession. "I'm sorry," in the way he buried his face in her neck. "I love you," in the broken moan that escaped him. "We're free," in the way she arched and clung, nails marking his back not in possession, but in proof they were both still alive. Release came together, shattered, sobbing, bodies trembling through aftershocks as they clung like lifelines. Tears mingled on skin, breath synced in ragged harmony. Afterward, they lay entwined on the rumpled sheets, his head on her chest, her fingers stroking through his hair in slow, soothing strokes. "I love you," he said at last. Simple, wrecked, final. No qualifiers, no shadows left to hide behind. "I love you," she answered, voice steady now, whole. Past the fear, past the blood, all the way through. 3 months later, a weathered clapboard house on the coast, waves crashing below like applause for survivors. Zuri sat on the porch steps, law school acceptance letter in hand. Earned scholarship, clean slate. Tae-Woo stepped out behind her, 2 mugs of tea steaming in the salt air. His small legitimate import business humming quietly in the background. He sat beside her. Their hands found each other without looking, fingers lacing, thumbs stroking in quiet rhythm. No grand declarations, no rings yet, just this. 2 people who had walked through fire and chosen to stay on the other side. "You and me," she murmured. "Always," he answered, leaning to rest his forehead against hers. The ocean roared on, the world turned, and for the first time, neither of them was running.